Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening if you're watching in the Southern Hemisphere. I hope you are, Paul. My name is Carl Martin. I had the pleasure of introducing the last IPM Says. Well, it was the first and the last to be done. Our title is It Ain't All Doom and Gloom. After we finished the last session, we got a lot of positive reaction, which is what we wanted, which is what we were trying to do. And we also got told that people wanted to go further, to listen to more. So that's what we're trying to do today. Please, the one thing that I've always said at IPM is it's the International Live Music Conference Production Meeting. And that's what today is as well. It's international. So without any further delay, I want to introduce you to our panelists. Can we start with Sophie Ridley, please? Sophie, could you introduce yourself and where you're from?
Hello, everybody. I'm Sophie Ridley. I live in Ireland. I'm originally from England, as you can probably tell by my accent. I am a safety consultant and an event controller. Event controllers in Ireland are pretty much the same as your safety officers in England and in various other places. I'm trying to remember we're international. I'm also chairman of a group called EPIC, which is the Event Production Industry COVID-19 Response Group. We're a very new organization formed to deal with the problems raised by COVID. We represent very much the same sort of people as the PSA does in the UK. Ironically, I was also the vice chairman of the PSA 25 years ago, so life is now going round in circles. And I'm looking forward to the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Nick.
Good morning, Carl. Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Love. I'm an event safety consultant and event management consultant based in the UK. I also manage a venue in the southeast of England, a greenfield site venue for festivals called Colebrook Park. I'll keep it short. That's me.
Thank you, Nick. Marcel.
Good morning, Carl. My name is Marcel Albers. I'm based in the Netherlands. I'm the conference coordinator for the European Production and Innovation Conference during Eurosonic, always in January 2000, coming up 2021 again. And besides that, I'm responsible for Dutch music export as well. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Ryan from EFM. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer, and we've been in business over 20 years. Logistics around the world is our business, and working with live music, theatre, shows, conferences, events, sports, TV and film, the whole kind of spectrum really of niche logistics. We're spread across, I'm based in the UK, but we are spread across the Middle East, Australia and the US also. And that's me.
Thanks a lot. And finally, not last or least, but Sanyin.
Hello, Carl. My name is Sanyin Chorovic. I'm coming from Belgrade, Serbia, from the company called Production Pool, where I work as a production manager, and I'm one of the founding partners. We are working mainly in Eastern Europe, but worldwide as well. And we produce various kinds of events. We are a full-service production company, which means basically that we offer turnkey solutions, and we are also an AV supplier for those events.
Okay, thank you. Although this is an international broadcast, and I've already had some greetings from the Southern Hemisphere, thank you. We obviously are initially a British organisation. So there are things happening today in the UK that I have to mention, but I don't mind because it's going to spread us around the world and get reaction, one hopes. The one thing that we want to put across is that it's not all doom and gloom. You know, if you look at what's happening in Serbia, there's stuff going on. Things are opening. Sadie will talk about that later on. Croatia, there are also festivals that are beginning to happen. Austria has allowed up to 10,000 people in stadiums. So there is a growth, and elsewhere is happening as well. Here in the UK, things aren't quite so flexible yet, and Nick is hopefully going to tell us more about that. One of the things that's happened today, though, is the live music stars and others, including venues and suppliers and crew, etc., have actually asked the government for help. The music industry in the UK is worth £4.5 billion plus, and basically there was a press release given, of which I was lucky enough to get a copy, because one of the comments, and this really stuck out when I read this. This is Ben Lovett of Mumford & Sons, who is obviously a performer, but he goes on, he's made a statement and he says, now I'm a venue owner and watching our entire industry get decimated by this virus. Every day, literally, I hear of another friend in music losing their job, shutting up shop, switching careers. This pandemic has affected everyone. It has taken many lives and forever changed many more. Live entertainment has not been the headline, nor do I believe it should have been, at least until now. We really have to pay some attention to what our cultural landscape is going to look like on the other side of this, and we're hoping that the Let Music Play campaign will pull some of this into focus for a minute. And I think that really sums it up. You know, it's not that the industry is saying we're the only ones out there. It's just saying, look, we've got a large part to play in the UK and in the world. So please, can we have some help? The letter has gone to Parliament today. I'm told that meetings are to take place. I'm told that meetings have taken place already, but maybe they haven't been successful enough yet. Sophie, I know that you're involved with the government and negotiations in Ireland. What's the situation there?
The situation is, Carl, that there is an Oireachtas committee, which is a parliamentary committee, a special committee on COVID-19 response, and they've been talking to industry after industry after industry. So they've had the construction industry in, and tourism, and the vintners and hotels, and we as the live music, live events industry went in 2 days ago. We made presentations with 3 different groups representing 3 different areas of the events industry there. We had a very positive response. We were very pleasantly surprised by the positiveness shown towards our industry, and the fact that they realized how completely devastated we are at the moment, how we can't do anything, and that we were such a thriving, resilient industry before that, and that we can get back to being that. We just need a bit of help to get there. So we asked for the usual things: our unemployment benefit, COVID payments to stay till we're back at work, the wage subsidy, which I think it's called furloughing, grants, help with rates, some funding for mental health initiative, and we received a very positive response. And we're going back in again to talk to them in a couple of weeks.
And did they give any indication of how quickly they're going to react?
Well, we have a new government, and there's a financial stimulus package coming out at the end of July. So they implied that we would need to be part of that. Okay.
And what about opening up for numbers? Is this tied in, or is this a separate item?
Well, one of the other things we asked for is an industry task force with interdepartmental representation on it, because at the moment it's very hard to find someone to say, yes, you can do that. So the legislation at the moment says we can only have 50 indoors, 100 outdoors. In 2 weeks, that goes to 100 indoors and 500 outdoors. There is talk in September about letting us do under 5,000 outdoors. But we need someone to say, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can put 6 people together in a group on a field and then have a space and put another 6 people. We need someone to go to with our suggestions. So that's what we've asked for. And again, they were very receptive to that idea.
Okay, now that's interesting, because one of the things that the letter to the government has said is they want a clear conditional timeline for reopening venues without social distancing, and alongside a comprehensive business and employment support package, access to finance, and full VAT exemption on ticket sales. Nick,
That's very similar.
so is that a similar package that you're asking for?
Yeah, we asked for 5% on tickets. At the moment, it's 23%. We asked for 5%, and we asked for everything else go down to 9%, along with they're talking about doing that for tourism and hospitality. So we'll fit into that.
Okay, Nick, you're a venue owner, and you have excuse me, you put together a package which is being stopped. The activation of which is being stopped by what? Can you explain?
At the start of the summer, I had 8 shows booked at Colebrook, and 6 of them have cancelled. I've still got 2 in the diary for the August bank holiday and for mid-September. So in the interim, as I was struggling for business, I've decided to put together a package, assuming that 500 people would be allowed to gather with social distancing in place by the 4th of July. So I have invested in enough production, a small stage, lighting, PA, a load of picnic tables to put out to give people an idea of what the social distancing regime should be. And I've got some promoters interested and some sponsorship on board. However, the main sticking point is there's no clear government guidance. The announcement on the 4th of July didn't allow for mass gatherings of more than 30. And there is still no clear guidance around mass gatherings, small mass gatherings, outdoors or indoors in the UK. The general feeling is that the government are reviewing on a weekly basis, and I'm hoping that by the end of August we'll have some very clear guidance, including capacity guidance, in order that small events can open up and we can get the industry working again, even in a small way.
You said by the end of August?
Sorry, I meant by the end of July. I've got everything booked for the start of August, so I'm making a mistake.
But what are you basing this on? Is this indications from government or from local authorities, or what?
I've been involved in lots of conversations with promoters and with industry bodies, and there's a very strong desire to get things up and running, but there also seems to be a feeling that government are now taking time to look at the outdoor or the events industry, music business, and will be forced to make some clear suggestions and guidance by the end of this month.
Okay. Lisa, have you had any, I mean, you work internationally. How are things internationally, and comparing us in the UK with the rest of the world, how are we doing?
Well,
there's a cracker for you.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Yeah, I mean, obviously for us, we spoke at the IPM when I was the only person in the room to put my hand up and admit to having a COVID response. Although obviously at that time we absolutely didn't expect to get to DEFCON 5 or whatever we ended up at. But yeah, I mean, we were hit quite early on logistically, because obviously after Chinese New Year, a lot of supply chain internationally is hinging around Asia. So with planes stopping flying, we kind of had a double whammy really. The actual physical supply chain was stopping, and then bit by bit, each of the sectors we were working across were grinding to a halt. We've had quite a few. Obviously, we get involved quite early on in the planning stages. We do quite a bit of consultancy and planning with our clients, and so we've been. If we were looking at how things were going to be based on what we've got in all the quotes that we've done, then it's looking like an amazing couple of years. But obviously, a lot of it is people dipping their toes in the water, trying to fathom out what is possible and what's not. So the Middle East early on, where we're very heavily active, had a lot of inquiries around all their seasons that they have, where they've been doing a lot of EDM festivals, music activity, Middle East, all activities around sport. I think the governments in that part of the world are still very much planning ahead for doing those events, but it's more than likely going to tip into next year, I suspect, realistically, after some initial optimism for later this year. But who knows? It's still up in the air. In terms of Australia, we've got office in Australia, and we work with the All Blacks and the Wallabies rugby team, for example. They, from a sport perspective, got back quite early with plans and engaging with the governments in those countries to talk about a trans-Tasman bubble and being able to move between the countries, which is still in progress. And some of the teams from New Zealand have actually gone to Australia to base themselves over there. Obviously, sports visa because they can quarantine. But I did have a very exciting piece of news this week. We have had a fans book a container to go to Japan for a festival in September.
Oh, really?
The most exciting thing. We were about somebody booking a van for a couple of £100 the other week, and now we've actually got a music move. Going to Japan. So there is the intention to travel, and they are planning ahead for going. We're loading next week, I think.
Can somebody do me a favour? Can somebody Google and see what Japan's rules are at the moment?
Yeah. So there's a promoter over there. They're looking ahead at doing Summer Sonic, and a number of artists are engaging to perform over there. One of our bands is packing up, ready to go. The promoters decided that they're going. I think it's 30,000 people they're planning on having in a 70,000 seater.
Sorry, how many?
30,000 out of the 70,000 capacity, and they are running it on a reduced attendance, obviously. But I, for one, was extremely excited about that piece of news, and I think it's an interesting move.
It certainly is. What do you know? What sort of controls they're putting in place?
I don't have that level of detail at the moment, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
I'm just
okay. Because obviously, there is planning going on for various things, and I've been lucky enough to be involved with something that's being planned. But the amount of COVID-19 protocols that are having to be put in place are huge, but they're not standard. I mean, the World Health Organization says one thing, the local authorities say another thing, the national government says another thing. It'd be intriguing to find out, even afterwards, Lisa, if you can find out what's going on.
I'll try and do some digging. I'll try to do some digging on that. But you make a very good point there. You know, the fact lots of the things that we've had lots of what are called false starts, where we've literally got shipments arriving, particularly into places like that, over the last few weeks, where people were gung-ho about doing it, and then they've got there and turned them around and shipped them back again. There has been some of that. And the biggest challenge, obviously, in our industry is we need mass gatherings and borders to be open. And these quarantine periods, obviously, at the moment that are under review, certainly over here, the fact that there's no consistency and no real certainty around who can travel, whether they have to quarantine once they get there is a whole other ball game. And I do know that in the TV and film industry, which we also work across, a lot of the movies that had a heavy US actor contingent have postponed what they're going to be doing because of the high instances in the States. They're not keen on having the US contingent come into Europe, for example. So that is a big issue.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting a note on my screen from Dragsith. I'm not quite sure where he's from. He said, but there's 250 shows being allowed at the moment, but it would need a lot of pioneering work until you get to 40 to 60% of attendance. What would be possible? At least that's what the first shows were about. Dragsith, where are you come from? Please, if you can let us know. Going back to Germany. in Germany, opening up slowly, it shows the mindset of potential visitors is a bigger problem than expected. Very hard to sell tickets. We'll come back to that because at the moment I want to talk about the production side. One of the things that this plea to the government for money, it coincided with something I was thinking about, which isn't very positive, unfortunately, and I'm trying to put a positive slant on it. In the last year or two, I can't remember whether it was this year or the year before, Roger Barrett from Star Live, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning your name, Roger. He made a comment about production companies getting bigger, but what it meant was, and he was particularly talking about China, but he sort of made a comparison. You've got promoters who are getting larger and larger, and the numbers of smaller ones diminishing. You've got, he didn't say this, but I know you've probably got 65 to 70% of the world's artists controlled by 3 major agencies. What I'm terrified about, personally, is that all this money that's being asked for, who's going to control it? And does it mean we're going to end up with 1, 2, 3 major promotion agencies or major production companies who, and it's going to affect the lower end of the market? Am I being silly, Marcel?
Well, I hope you're silly, and I hope that what you're telling us now is not going to happen. But I have to admit that I share your fear.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, Holland is it's compared to the other territories, it's a small territory, and we are pretty well organized. We have our branch organizations, and we are in a constant dialogue with the government and with the industry. And there's actually room for the industry to come up with ideas, and that's what the industry is constantly doing. I mean, within a couple of weeks, they established an alliance of what they call in Dutch the event builders. On the other side, we have an alliance who's taking care of the artist side and the more content side of the industry. But concentrating on the event builders, there is a constant dialogue, in the field of science, in the field of the government, on the production side. And, at some point, you have to, of course, I mean, the government is taking care. They did a great job by coming up with funding money for people to survive, funding money for companies to survive. But that was in the first, 3 months. Now we're going into a situation where we have 2 choices: or we're going to take care of the industry, or we're going to take care of the industry that people will probably leave, as you say, and do something else. But we heard before in this panel, and that people have to think about their future. And we all know, as you said, the big companies, the big agencies, the big labels, major record companies. It's like a couple of those blockbuster companies that are running the whole industry, and I'm afraid that there is a reasonable risk or chance that a lot of the smaller companies will maybe not survive. I mean, because a lot of those companies are, of course, it's always a hard job to be a booker or have a booking agency or have an agency or have a production company or a smaller PA and lighting company, whatever. And you see, everybody is suffering. And the good thing in Holland is that we see that everybody is joining. And of course, the big guys, they will step up, which makes sense because, they have a lot of experience. Economical, they keep the business up and running. So, it's normal, but I am really afraid that the landscape will change, and that means that bigger companies with deep pockets will survive, hopefully. It's important enough. But a lot of the upcoming companies and the smaller companies, I'm afraid that, I mean, for a government, it's almost not possible to look at every size of company or to look at every kind of angle of the industry. Certainly not in Holland, the event industry. So because it's a reasonable small industry. So there's a lot of work to do, and it's very important that we stay in a dialogue with the government, but it's probably equally important to stay in contact with all the different levels of our own production industry, because otherwise, I'm afraid that your prediction or your statement could be very
fear.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Sanja, what's the situation? Is the government helping in? We've got Ireland, which seems to be very, very positive. We've got the UK, which is now being forced into negotiation, if we can put that in a polite manner. What's it like in Serbia? Has the industry been helped?
Well, as you'll probably know, I promised that I will speak only positive things today. So I won't.
You can talk about doom and gloom, but positively.
No. So no doom and gloom allowed today. We had that enough. So I'll try to keep it positive. Actually, yes, the government did help. We had some funding. There's that first package of stimulus already distributed, and that's the truth. They did help, but it's almost nothing comparing to what we realistically need. But on the other hand, we have to admit that we are a poor country. We are not the European Union. We are really a lot below European standard, and they did what they could. So there are some other options, some like not direct funding, but some really, really cheap credits. But in the end, you are taking credit to keep your liquidity and your company going, and you're not able to work, which is not really a good thing. And the thing is, I'm pretty optimistic about the business because some things are slowly but surely moving, and something is happening. The thing is that, and I have to mention it, it's a lot of the thing with events here is it's about the politics, because unfortunately we had the elections on the June 21st, and I have to go back a little bit in the past. The first coronavirus case here was on the 6th of March, and I literally flew in from the IPM London in Belgrade on the 7th of March, and I started losing my projects, And we had on the March 15th, we had a full lockdown, one of the tightest in Europe. Sometimes we would be in our homes locked from Thursday till Monday. People over the age of 65 were not able to leave their homes at all times. Then they would slowly they would be released to some ridiculous times at 4 in the morning. They could go grocery shopping between 4 and 6 a.m. And we had a really serious lockdown, and then around 6th of May, I think, we had a complete release of all measures. It was crazy because literally overnight, everybody started acting normal, like Corona never happened. And besides waitress in coffee bars and restaurants wearing masks, there were no signs of coronavirus, but we were all really suspicious about it because we thought, this is not my personal opinion, this is general public opinion, that the government was trying to look it a bit better, to make it look a bit better than it really was because of those elections, because all the political campaigns instantly resumed after that, and they pushed it hard. Those were large political rallies, gathering of several thousand people, sometimes 10, 20K people. And after that, we had the elections, and we had some growth in numbers, and realistically, they had they had a really bad communication with the public, and people didn't take it seriously because they said, Corona has passed, we can go as we were. They allowed the biggest football derby in the country. They let 25 to 30,000 people in the stadium. They said, please take some measures, social distancing, but there were there was nobody who would control those measures in practice. And after that, and some smaller stuff, we have a few points of outbreak, new outbreak points of the coronavirus in Serbia, but I don't think it's, if I may say that, I mean, it's people's lives are in question, but it's not that as serious as the medias are presenting to us, So I would go back to one internet meme that I recently saw. It's very interesting. It's short and simple. There's a patient in the hospital asking a doctor, doctor, can you please tell me when will this pass, this thing with the coronavirus? And the doctor is replying, sorry, I'm not sure I can answer. I'm not a politician. And being in constant contact with the people from United States to Japan, literally, I'm getting the impression that more or less all around the world, the bigger question is politics and economy than the human lives, But on the positive side, we have many things going on here. It's small, but it's happening. We have some concerts, open air shows for 1,000, 2,000 people. We had the unpleasant situation that I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but Novak Djokovic wanted to make a small tennis tour, Adria tour, in Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, and Montenegro. It would last from mid-June till beginning of July, and it would gather approximately 9,000 to 10,000 people. And it went really well in Belgrade. It was a huge production work because we don't have a stadium like, I don't know, Wembley or something like that. And the interest was really big. So they had the big, huge bleachers, massive PAs, LED screens, etc. So a lot of production work on that side. But unfortunately, in Croatia, one of the players got positive, and then after that, Novak became positive, etc. So they decided to cancel it. But it was really, really positive, and the audience is literally hungry for the events. They don't want to stick at home, enjoying a live stream of the concerts. With all due respect, they want a real thing. And I must say, especially in this part of Europe, in Balkan region, it's a part of our, culture and folklore. We like to kiss and hug a lot, And this social distancing, it doesn't work. We're not Japanese people, So beside that, I can say that we had a huge shopping mall opening in our capital city of Belgrade a few days ago. There were literally queues of hundreds of people standing in line for special discounts for the opening day, stuff like that. Exit Festival, as you're probably aware of, it's going to happen. I still don't know how, in what form, but they have some serious names on their lineup, mostly DJs, but they're trying to get some bands, international acts. We have Love Fest and some other smaller festivals still trying to go, and they are bringing out new names every day, which is for me positive. And then something that's not specific to Serbia, I mean, I've noticed that all around the world, those open air and drive-in cinemas are happening. So you have that in many shopping malls organizing open air cinemas on their parking lots, because that's one of the good ways to attract the audience. People are not, crazy about shopping these days, but they are, something is happening. And there are some other stuff, but I'll try to make this short. I'm optimistic in the end because we see some things going on. The government now is, I have to mention one more thing, I'm sorry. The government is officially having a problem with the clubs. Clubs are new outbreaks of the coronavirus. I think it's a complete nonsense because, at the end, we can all come back to the elections and the political rallies and the biggest derby in the country and some other events like that. So the clubs are still working, and I don't think they will close them again. I know something similar is happening in Hungary, in Croatia as well. But at this point, I think that all of the audience and the people and the club owners and everybody's fed up with it. And I don't think that the governments are risk, to bring the anger of the mass.
True. No, I think you're right. It sounds very positive, and please God, it's you're going to get away with it, and that's probably a wicked phrase to use, but it's Nick. Sorry, can I just jump back to Sophie? Sophie, when you're talking to the government about well, one, when can we open up, and two, what help can we get financially? Who's handling the financial side?
From the government point of view?
Yeah, I mean, if is the government just saying? I mean, obviously there's things like furlough where it's individuals, but if the industry are asking for a lump of money to help out with things, who's going to control that?
We're not asking for a lump of money.
You're not.
So what we're asking for is things that are administered through our government trade and industry departments. So, for instance, a grant based on a percentage of your turnover for 2018, that being the last audited accounts people will have. So that would the revenue would manage that.
Okay, so it's actually
the only lump sum we're asking for is to fund our mental health initiative, and will go straight to Minding Creative Minds Association. Okay.
So there isn't. God, forgive me for saying this.
We don't have an organisation. We're very new. We don't have an overall. We only have the National Council for Arts, and they are the already funded people. The theatres and they have their money. They've got 100 million off the government already. So we need to find a way that all our music industries are full of individual people and small and medium companies. We're not an organised industry in that way. So that's why it's grants based from revenue, local council rates, holidays, things that can be very clearly defined within governmental departments.
Okay. Well, no, that's good news. That's good news because at least it's controlled.
Yeah.
Nick, what happens to you if at the end of July they don't come up with an answer?
I will have to postpone until they do come up with an answer. Obviously, as a greenfield site in the UK, I can't really do very much after September. And I'd still have 2 events in my diary. We're taking up the August bank holiday in mid-September. So my window of opportunity would be seriously diminished, which would mean going forwards with no income this year. But on the upside, there's been a massive amount of interest for next year. So I'm almost fully booked.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that based on 1 metre or 2 metre distancing? Because I've seen the plans of your Colebrook Park, and that was based on 2 metre. Have you revised that now?
No, for 2020, I'm sticking with the 2 metre distancing because it gives me as an organizer a lot of control over the audience when they're in the venue. So I'm looking at trying to get that distancing message out. The UK government said that we can drop to 1 metre if 2 metre isn't sustainable. But given the space I've got, 2 metres is sustainable, and it works well in the greenfield site with the layout I'm proposing.
Okay. We've just had Victoria Breitecker, forgive me if I didn't get that pronunciation right, is saying there was an article on German media this morning saying Netherlands allow events, indoor and outdoor, unlimited visitors. Visitors have to keep social distance and to agree to health checks before they're allowed to enter a venue. Is this true? And is this procedure a potential for other countries? Marcel?
This is not true yet. I mean, it's not happening yet. I mean, we're on a situation where events for young people till the age of 18, they don't have to use the social distancing anymore from 1.5 meters. The rest, we move up to events of 100 people. But our government said that, and they were talking about football games, so events in general, that as from September 1st, we go into a situation indeed, where we don't, use the number of people that are allowed into the venue or into a event location, but that we look at the possibilities to get as many people in, but using the social distancing of 1.5 meters. The good thing is that, like the alliance, the industry formed of the event builders, they came up with an initiative themselves to do something what they call field labs. So together with suppliers, producers, everybody involved, they're gonna work together with the government and see how we could do this. So let's call it a protocol, but heavily involved by everybody involved. So not everybody separate, but all together. And of course, having a football game match or an event or a festival, having like people, having like, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people in. It's not so much only about the capacity of the venue. It's also the logistics about the whole lot, about the whole event location. So there's still a lot of things to do, but that's what we are aiming for at the moment. Yes, opening up more and going into a situation where it's not limited to a certain amount of people, but looking at the venue and what's possible, etc.
Yeah. Okay, so this article's actually jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, Lisa, apart from Japan, what? You were talking earlier about the Middle East. Mm-hmm. Is there anything definite in terms of dates or timelines, or is the UK? I don't believe the UK is unique in saying we don't know yet. Is there anywhere in the world, apart from New Zealand and Australia, that has actually said we do know, that you know of?
Apart from Japan, the Japan one that I've just said about, no.
Yeah.
Everybody's the same. As I said, we've had a lot of what are called false starts, where we've sent things, production equipment, backline, etc., off on tour, and it's been turned around and come back again. Stuff for ballet, theatre, music. We have got some other moves coming over to the UK soon from the States for some theatre shows, but how much of it is speculative, I don't know. We have got some artists that are looking at going and rehearsing and going into studio overseas, which is interesting. But yeah, no, there's no certainty, and I think therein lies the ultimate problem. I hate to be negative, but there is no certainty. So everything that we get confirmed on is confirmed subject to said event happening. And even at the point where a shipping container has been on the water for 30 days, we still might not know if it's actually going to happen, if the event's going to happen.
Can I be a bit forward here? Are you actually getting paid for all this work?
I hope so.
No, I just wondered if if people were taking chances.
Well,
we'll have the container back and we'll pay you next year.
Well, yeah, look, there is always that worry, isn't there? At the end of the day, we've been quite rigid with our conversations with clients when, if it's going, that we've got to pay for it. So the fact your event might get cancelled, we can't not get paid.
So your company is staying solvent at the moment, or head above water?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, that's absolutely
all right. That's enough.
Yeah.
I told you it was a cheeky question.
Yeah, as I said, we've got office. Yeah, we've got offices in different countries, so we've had to keep very abreast of all the changes in those countries that I mentioned. And from a solvency perspective, we've very much been doing like everyone else has been doing, and lobbying and participating in all the initiatives in those different places, and taking advantage of furlough schemes where it's been possible. And also, just touching on the mental health point that was mentioned a little while back, just really trying to. One thing that became quite clear is that you can't just put staff on furlough and expect them to just stay at home doing nothing. People want to be doing things, and they get very frustrated, and they need to keep in touch with the business and the industry. So the great thing in the UK and in the States too, but here the furlough scheme changes have allowed us to be able to bring people into the business and basically flip people in and out of the business, so we can bring
really?
back, yeah, which is great. So we're going to start bringing people back for 2 to 3 weeks so that they can keep in touch, that they can be actively involved, and then switch them around just from you know, be able to retrain people in other skills. We've been putting people on forklift licenses, courses, you know, all sorts of upskilling as well, and training, and then just flipping them on and off furlough, because it's important for people to keep engaged, you know.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting something in from Oleg Gaida. I hope I'm getting these names right. Re Japan, as of 2nd July 2020, there's still an entry ban for foreign nationals, subject to Japan government ongoing review. The Japan consulate is not issuing any visas yet. We are monitoring daily, and then if anyone needs an update, please don't hesitate to get in touch. That's a very nice we'll do your job for you advert. But thank you, Oleg.
I think that's everywhere, isn't it? You know, all these people who, certainly here in the UK, everyone's gone nuts at the weekend booking trips for holidays over the summer and stuff, and the FCO advice is still don't travel. You know.
True. And Balbir Judge from, I'm not sure where he's from. The government should set a $1 billion fund to bring music industry and entertainment industry back to life.
That'd be nice.
I'm sure there's a lot of people agree with that. And who's going to pay for it? Sophie, were you surprised by the reaction you got from the government when you went to speak to them yesterday?
We were really.
Were they surprised?
No, I think they'd all read our documentation. They'd all read our submissions. We were really surprised, because normally if you watch the Oireachtas TV, and I'm sure it's in most countries, most of them seem half asleep all the time, or they're attacking the people. And these were people really engaged. Ireland is a country of musicians and poets. You know, we apparently per population, we have the highest number of people going to gigs. Now, you know, Carl, the woman's been positive here, so I've been very positive. We've yet to see the results.
Yes.
You know, and I'll come back and let you know what the results are. I'll let you know what happens. But it was a very positive, and we were very surprised.
Why do you think it was so positive? And I'm asking this question so that if there are people from other countries who've got the same problems you have, maybe they can learn from your replies.
I think there were two reasons. One was that there were three different sets of people went in. One was the National Council for Arts, who are continuously talking to the government. They're very polished. They have all the facts and figures at their fingertips. They're used to that lobbying. The other two groups who went in, we're not used to it. I mean, my group is made up of production managers and safety officers and PA companies. You know, we're not used to doing this. And when we went in, we were quite emotional. We had our facts and figures, but we were also, you know, this is the lights being turned off, guys. You know, when we reopen, there's going to be nobody to reopen us, because we can't survive. We cannot survive through till next March unless you help us here. You know, at the moment, people are having mortgage breaks, mortgage holidays, loan breaks. They're going to end soon. And everybody else in the country is going back to work. And I mean, we in Ireland, particularly given our weather, we can't see any work for our crew really until next March or April. And we were quite blatant about that and quite emotional about that. And I think, you know, compared to the construction industry, everyone going and rattling off these figures, they felt for us, you know. But also, what kept us all going during the lockdowns? It was the arts, it was TV, it was concerts, it was all that streaming, you know. And even the people that sort of say we don't need arts, we talk about people, you know, charities and stuff. Even TV is art, you know, and people had to rely on that and during the lockdown. And I think people appreciated it, you know. Right,
Marcel, were you involved at all with the discussions with the Dutch government?
Well, not directly, but of course, being into all this, you know, groups of people who are talking to each other and being involved in like Dutch music export, I'm pretty well aware of what's happening. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, all those, especially for a small territory as Holland, if you see that the country is hit that hard, of course, all the attention goes to like the other stuff, which is important too. So the event sector or culture is coming, at the end of the line. But I have to admit that we're doing good. We're pretty well organized, and we keep in a constant dialogue. So that helps. Of course, the same thing as mentioned here before is that we are a little bit scared because we made all these plans. The industry came up with stuff like the field labs. They calculated the value of the industry. And now we're moving into the, how do you say that, the summer season where also the government will take their, weeks off for something like 6 to 8 weeks. And we are getting pretty nervous, of course, because we know that for a lot of companies, if we get an answer on what's going to happen or what, with the events or what the final funding will be after, let's say, we have some sort of system till the end of August, or to the end of September.
Marcel, sorry, can you excuse me 1 minute? I have a little visitor. Oh dear, go and see Judith. Okay. Sorry, my 3-year-old daughter came in to tell me she had a problem. Forgive me. Carry on.
That's important too. No, but as I said, we are. It's all we're all doing good. Of course, we're all in charge. We have to say the sector, but and plans are all up and running, and everybody's doing whatever he can. And now we move into the summer season, where the government is closing down. And we know for sure that if we don't have the possibility to get straight answers or, keep on working together in the upcoming weeks, and we only got an answer somewhere at the end of August or somewhere in September, that a lot of these companies will not survive. And that's like something to worry about. Yeah.
It is. Sorry, I've had a comment from Martin Goebbels, who's known to a lot of us nationally and internationally as one of our friends in the insurance business, I believe. And he's asked the question: Will crew be willing to work if uninsured for Corona? We in the industry are constantly trying to find an insurance solution. Mm-hmm. And this is a bloody good answer, a bloody good question. I don't think anybody can answer that. Nick, I'm sorry to throw it in your lap first of all, but is there what will happen? As Martin says, there's no signs of accepting responsibility. Are there plans or possibility for production companies to have crew sign disclaimers, or is that feasible? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that crew, like everybody else, will make a decision themselves as to whether or not they want to go back to work. There will be a percentage that need to go back to work and will take the risk, and there'll be others who want to be cautious about their health and will not go back to work. I don't think the idea of signing a disclaimer will actually hold up. It's really difficult to pinpoint the point of infection with Corona because of the gestation time of the virus being 5 days. And likewise, that has an impact on events and promoters. It's very unlikely there'll be any legal action taken against an event as being the beginning of an outbreak, because there's no way to prove that the outbreak originated at any one point in time.
Okay. So.
Oh, can I just say, I think my 5-year-old daughter has gone back to school this half term, and I had to sign a 4-page Q&A tick box and disclaimer in order for her to go back to school, which was primarily around protecting the school and not holding them liable, etc., etc. So I could see that whether it's enforceable or not, in the same way, I think people are going to go down that path. I would suggest of getting people just to cover their asses,
right?
These kinds of disclaimers. I would suggest. It's anyone else got any thought on it? But if I've got to do it for a 5-year-old going to school.
Yeah. Sophie first, please.
Yeah, I'm involved in the filming of a TV show, and everyone has to sign a disclaimer written by a lawyer, whether it holds up, whether it can actually be enforced. And, you know, as Nick said, you can't really prove where it came from, but we are all having to sign a disclaimer.
Okay, Sanyin?
I just wanted to say that Martin was speaking about this issue at the IPM this year, and I don't think that there is any other possible solution, because if you go for any kind of insurance, I don't think that any insurance company would survive that. They would all go bankrupt. You know.
Well, as Martin said at IPM, from February the 3rd this year, no insurance company in the world will insure you against coronavirus.
Exactly.
So I think it's probably a problem we're all going to have, you know, if we're involved in the event industry, and parentally, as Lisa says, you know, if you want your kid to go to school, I find that a bit horrific that you've got to absolve the school. No, okay, you probably, what all of you said, you know, you can't prove where it came from, but I think the schools are being a bit. 4 pages. What were they asking you for?
Measurement.
Yes, exactly.
I think, sorry, but I think that in the end, regarding this corona question in the entire industry, I think the only fair solution would be that we all share responsibility. You know, not just within this industry. I mean, globally, it's a general responsibility, and that's it. That's
a fabulous statement, because one of the last things I want to actually, how long have we got? Oh, about 5 minutes. So we've got another 5 or 10 minutes. One of the things that, if you watch the last production, Vita from South Africa was talking about sharing, and that, you know, what they were learning to do very quickly in South Africa. Sorry. Let me go back quickly. There's a Martin Goebbels comment. I'm thinking particularly of future tours rather than one-off events. All right. I think, Martin, the comment that Sanyin made about sharing responsibility has got to answer that one. But Vita was saying that in South Africa particularly, they are now all getting together, all sectors of the event industry, whether it's exhibitions, conferences, whatever, and they're beginning to get together and share information. Yes. And something was said. I was speaking to somebody from the east, a venue in the east of England this week, and he was saying that he was going to his local authorities' event safety group on a regular basis, and it's what Sophie was saying earlier about parliamentary committees. He said until all this kicked in, you would go to this committee and think, well, what's that guy doing here? He's fast asleep. And think, but he said that now it's amazing the amount of information and help that people are offering each other is just beyond, you know, beyond his comprehension. Has anybody else come across? I mean, Nick, I believe you're sharing quite a lot and having stuff stolen, but you're sharing stuff as well.
Yeah, I started sharing from the start of June with that kind of layout for small events, and lots of events have adopted it, and that's good for me to see that people have been thinking along the same lines. You know, I'd be an idiot to think that I had a unique idea in this day and age. But I'm really pleased to see that model is being adopted and people are rolling it out. As Sanjin said, there is a massive demand for events, and we're seeing illegal events taking place already in the UK, which the police have been forced to regulate. So again, that is going to put pressure on government to actually allow regulated events. But even the suppliers, everybody else I've been dealing with are all making allowances and all making partnerships in order to get business moving again. I've been offered some very, very competitive rates, which are obviously this year only. And I haven't asked for discounts, they're being offered. Most people's concern is really just getting individuals back to work, getting some money back in the hands of the freelancers and individuals. The companies with equipment can afford to take a much lower hire fee, and then just have the turnover of wages going through the business. And that is a bit of a revelation in this day and age. Hopefully that will continue going forwards.
Well, I hope so. I've just, as a bit of information, a gentleman from Ukraine has just written in and said that the government are doing diddly squat basically out there. Unfortunately, they probably don't have the money, bless them. But what they are doing, it's just come up again. Alexandra Strizhak, I hope. Just information, in Ukraine, the government does not help the concert and event industry. People and companies face the problem of lack of business and forecasts for the future. Nevertheless, 2 major festivals are not cancelled, and they were moved to the end of August and beginning of September. And Sanyin, you're going to make a comment about, are you working on it?
No. No, I just don't want to miss the opportunity to put something optimistic again regarding the events. Yeah, I mean, it's Serbia, but hopefully it will spread around. Looking at my calendar so far for September, it looks really nice. You know, it's like, I don't know, more than half full, maybe even 3/4 at the moment. However, there are no guarantees it will happen. But I'm speaking about different kinds of events, you know, like conferences, corporate stuff. No concerts at the calendar at the moment. But September, October, November, and a few days ago, I even received an inquiry from an foreign client. They want to host a big event here for several hundred people for 11 different countries from Europe. So they're considering December. So people are thinking about it. I'm not thinking as far as the next spring. I'm thinking more as like autumn, winter. I know we are done with touring and festival season, but some kinds of events are happening, and I'm sure that those events will able to generate some kind of income for the entire industry. You know, it's not much, but it's something.
Okay, so there's a bit of advice. If you want some work, move to Serbia. Lisa, you from what you've been saying, you are still going. Sorry, I didn't come back to you on the mental health thing. The fact that you're thinking about people like that is admirable, and thank you very much. That's something that we kicked off with in IPM a few years ago, and I'm delighted that it's happening. Sophie, Marcel, has anybody else got any more comments to make? I'm being nudged to pack up. But at the moment we're rolling a little bit, so we'll go until they cut us off. Sophie, are there signs of events other than music beginning to happen in Ireland? You know,
not really yet. I mean, we're still under 50 and 100, and we're moving to 100, 200. September possibly. I think people are would be much happier here to go to outdoor events and indoor events.
Okay.
We've done a whole trust thing there to engender with audiences indoors.
And what about the virtual shows? Is there a lot of that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of that, but there's a limit to how much that you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the same vibe. It's not the same going out feeling, you know.
No, it's a bit like this conference, unfortunately. Avisar, the Israeli market in a nutshell, can you make it quick? The industry is struggling for financial help from an unwilling government, while we can hold up to 250 capacity events. Oh, okay. Well, good luck, Israel. Marcel, is there any further positive thoughts from Holland, or is it just a matter again of the same as all of us, waiting for the government? Sorry, do your government go on holiday?
I'm sorry?
Do your government go on holiday in the summer?
Yes, for 6 weeks.
Yeah, 4 hours.
The same in Ireland?
Yeah.
But does the civil... Yeah, but I know the Parliament does, but what about the civil service?
Well, you never know, but it's hard, to get straight answers if like, the top guys are not there, the top girls. So,
Okay.
I mean, but, I am positive. Of course, we're all struggling and it's tough and we have to save the industry. But, we're opening up. We're trying to do whatever we can, talking to each other. And it's like mentioned before. I mean, it's good, you know, to team up, to look at the business to business event, the public events, sports, culture, put it all together. And maybe it's a very good idea to share some international data as well. You know, how did you evaluate your market and all that kind of stuff? Because I noticed that in all different territories, in all different countries, we all do different things, but at the end, I think it's all the same. So sharing data, and I'm also positive about Eurosonic Noorderslag, because, you know, we're like 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago, we had something, we have to go to like 50-50 online, maybe live. Now we have the feeling that we're really targeting on a live event, and of course we have to adjust, and of course we have to look into the social distancing. But I'm very positive that we will have a healthy and very interesting conference live as well in Groningen. And of course, talking about all the topics involved and focusing on the European market and taking it out of the European market. So I'm actually quite positive, yes, as long as we keep talking to each other. That's
good. I mean, there's also the Event Production Forum East in Budapest, which you know well. And that's still scheduled to go ahead on November the 13th. Sanya, and you're all invited. But listen, I think I have to pack up now. But I'm actually chuffed to bits because we have been international again today. We have been positive. We've talked about doom and gloom, but we've looked around the corner and found something that's a bit better in the future. John Corbishley, by the way, is saying good evening from the Southern Hemisphere.
Hi, John.
Listen, all of you, thanks a million. Thanks for doing this. And there are going to be more of these. So please keep watching. And thanks for your help.
Thank you very much, Carl.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everybody.